Today I find myself at Kayak Point, Washington. This is about an hour and a half north of Seattle for those of you not in the local area. All that water is ocean water. This is the Puget Sound. Off in the distance, way over there if you can see it, that's the Olympic Mountains. And all that land over there is different islands around, but the Olympic Peninsula is over there. This water wraps around from the Pacific and travels all the way down along Seattle, Olympia, and all the neighboring cities. So it's pretty cool. Ocean water everywhere here. It's a beautiful place to live. Apparently I manifested another sunny day. This is, we're in fall now, and it's always rainy and cloudy here, but today I got an afternoon free and perfect synchronicity, time to film an episode. So perfect. This episode I want to talk about Twin Flame 101. What is a twin flame? What's a soulmate? Kind of the difference between the two. A lot of people have heard of twin flames. It's getting real popular these days because a lot's going on in the spiritual community. But what is a twin flame exactly? And rather than telling my story, a couple of audio presentations have been made of that already a few months ago, and I'll put links in the description down below to that. So if you haven't heard my story, you can hear it up to how it's gotten, or where it's gotten to 3 months ago, but it's ongoing. It's just the way it's going to be. So it's not like it's coming to an end at any point. It just is what it is. So it's pretty cool. So Twin Flame 101. I'm gonna head over there. See if I can get away from these people everywhere. Jesus. What is a twin flame relationship? What are twin flames? Very different than soulmate love. If you, to really get this, I think someone has to really understand the difference between love and attachment to start with. Because the attraction that you have with a twin flame is unlike any other. It's not like a soulmate at all. And it's not like attachment either. Attachment can kind of drive you crazy, but when you really learn about attachment and get into those things, which is a big, long process for all of us, or most of us, then you can identify that there is a difference. So I've been around for a few years. I've had a few relationships along the way, and I've had a lot of those were based in attachment. So I do know the difference. My twin and I discovered each other about, I guess, 5 or 6 years ago when our paths crossed and we became friends and whatnot. And over a period of time, a magnetic attraction began to form. And so some of the characteristics of what a twin flame relationship is there's this magnetic attraction that is just unlike anything else. So that's fascinating. Can't really articulate what that means or how that's different than other things, because it just is. And if you are a twin flame and you have this other person in your life, then you know what it is. If you don't have that, then it really is hard to explain what it is, but that's what it is. It's a magnetic attraction that's unlike any other. Within that dynamic, there are characteristics of mirroring each other and catalysts for spiritual growth. As you go on down your life path together, however you're interacting or not interacting, there's this interaction with each other that causes spiritual growth, which is very different than a romantic soulmate type relationship. Romantic soulmate relationships are amazing and beautiful and full of all kinds of rich things that are full of affection for each other, and all of the wonderful things that you want in a romantic relationship are generally in a soulmate relationship. Those things are there with twin flames, but there's an entire umbrella of other things that come along with it. So that's one of the threads that's in there. And so some of those characteristics are very unique and complicated, and I'll kind of get into that in a little bit. But what is a twin flame, and what are twin flame people to each other? Lifetimes ago, the way this all starts is as you come into your first incarnation into the world, there's a soul, and the soul splits and goes down 2 different paths. A male and a female typically is what it is, and sometimes lifetime to lifetime the roles are reversed. I've learned in past incarnations I've been in the female role and my twin has been in the male role. And what happens is, as you go through different lifetimes, you may encounter each other, you may not. You may cross paths and not recognize each other because one or both of you are not in a place to get that recognition and understand. It just depends on where your spiritual awareness is as to if that happens. But you get into a particular lifetime and you cross paths, and if you understand who each other are and you develop this magnetic attraction, or discover it rather, then there you go. And what happens is there are several stages to the twin flame relationship, and they are kind of blow through them just generally here without getting too specific, but they're all there. this magnetic attraction is discovered, and interactions happen between the two people, and they're usually romantic and sexual, and a lot of other things. Deep friendship is there, and a knowing that the other person is such a mirror of you, and as you come to understand what this is all about, you realize that they really are just you. They're just an incarnation of you from your soul in another body. Now, one thing to understand, which I did not get when I first discovered this a couple years ago and began to understand what this was about, is the soul. What was presented to me is the soul splits and goes down two different paths, and the separation causes emotional trauma and things along those lines, suffering. Well, that's not actually the case. I've recently learned that what happens is the soul expands, and two incarnations of physical bodies go through each lifetime together doing different things. So that becomes a very beautiful thing if you understand that the soul expands, and then the soul has a larger capacity to love that way. So as you go forward through a given relationship in a lifetime with your twin, what happens is catalysts begin to come along to cause spiritual growth within the two people individually. The spiritual growth / spiritual ascension cannot happen if the two are in a relationship together, because what happens is the two people in that relationship becomes the dynamic of what's going on, and then the spiritual ascension and the catalyst and all that needs to happen don't get a chance to take place. Just like a traditional relationship might be with a regular person that you're dating or whatever, or a soulmate even, all of those things are very much that way. So that can't happen. It does happen occasionally where twins get together and have a relationship, but it always ends miserably and gets chaotic and gets really ugly because they haven't served the purpose of what the relationship is actually about. So what actually needs to happen as they go forward with their separate lives is separately from each other, they ascend spiritually. And there's a number of ways that can happen. A lot of people are encountering spiritual ascension and spiritual awakenings right now in the world for a lot of reasons. I'm one of the ones that has got this going on because of interacting with my twin flame, and that's just what I have in this incarnation. So it is what it is. A lot of people can do all these things without that as well. So what happens is you go through the different stages, and there's this runner-chaser dynamic that begins to happen. One of the twins becomes the runner and kind of wants away from the other one, and then the other one becomes the chaser. And in my relationship, I'm more the chaser, and my twin is the runner. She'll come back to me, and we'll engage in each other. So there's a push-pull thing that begins to happen. We'll encounter each other again, and glimpses of heaven will be shared between us. And this magnetism, we get to relive it from time to time or experience it again. And it's beautiful. And then things begin to just be kind of like, oh, this isn't what we're supposed to be doing, and we'll part ways, which every time is the runner is the one that leaves the chaser. And then what happens when those separation phases come along is the opportunity for both of the twins to then grow spiritually. The spiritual ascension part of this is basically going from the 3D to the 5D. And for those of you who don't understand what these things are, when I speak about them a lot, they're becoming common knowledge in society today, at least in the spiritual community, is like there's 12 spiritual dimensions basically, and we're cruising around in our physical bodies in the 3D. The 5D is what you can ascend to, from what I've come to understand, the highest spiritual dimension a person can ascend to while they're in their physical bodies, if you will. I'm putting this kind of generally, maybe not be exactly accurate, but say if you look at Jesus or Buddha and a number of ascended masters throughout time, they ascended through the 4D, which is basically the conduit to the 5D. When you get to the 5D, then resurrection and all these kinds of things can happen, and a whole nother conversation about that. I'm going to teach all that stuff later, but that's, for the point of twin flame, that's what this is about. So as the twins go through their journey, they push-pull, they interact, they bounce in and out of each other's lives, catalysts for growth. The separation happens, and the spiritual growth takes place in both of them. Ultimately, the point of all of these exercises is for the twins to come together in a latter stage and come together in union, in perfect harmony, and in 5D. That union cannot happen until both twins have ascended to the 5D independent of each other. That ascension process is very complicated, but in short, basically what it means is clearing out all the 3D behaviors and all the things that are holding us back from ascending to be basically like Jesus, if you will, and an ascended master. That's not easy. That takes a lot of courage. It's enduring a lot of pain. A lot of the things that I'm teaching in these episodes are a result of my twin flame journey and the things that I'm learning along the way. So I thought it was time to take a little break here and share where this is all coming from with me and touch on my story a little bit. But that's what's happening, and Now, I guess the final explanation of those stages is this: when the twins come together in perfect harmony, they've shut off all their 3D bullshit, and they are in 5D, certain thresholds into the 5D, and then without resistance, they'll come together in union, in harmony, in the 5D, and rekindle as one complete spiritual entity that's not in separate physical forms, and then move forward with the rest of their lifetime, sharing divine love with the world around them as they're called, and that can be a variety of different things. So that's the objective with the whole thing. Pretty interesting, right? Let me touch on some of the characteristics within this now. So within these stages of the twin flame relationship, some of the characteristics that are helpful to know if somebody watching this maybe is in a twin flame relationship, or wondering if the person that they've got this thing going on, or in some kind of romantic thing, is a twin flame, and how to handle it, because it's very difficult. But within these stages, some of the identifiers are, there's a knowing that develops, that the other person is thinking the same things you are, feeling the same things you are. You wake up in the middle of the night when they're not around, and you just feel them and you know what they're feeling, and then when you touch base later and reconnect, or whatever interaction you're having with them at the time, you find out, wow, we were feeling the same things. And sometimes you just know it's the other person. So the reason is because you're sharing a soul. So it's just a knowing, and there's no escaping it. And by the way, you only get one of these. You don't have multiple twin flames. So however we choose to move forward in the given lifetime with our twin flame is just a free choice. We have free will. We can do what we want with it. Both people can engage in it however much they want or not. But it is what it is, and it's beautiful no matter how it transpires. It's pretty miraculous. Another characteristic within these stages is one or both people, usually both, will develop a desire to help the people around them, and help mankind in general, and the spiritual community especially, grow and ascend themselves as well. You want to help people grow. You want to love them, you want to help heal them, and that's something that comes along as you go into this journey, that's developed as you engage in it. It's developed. So it's a beautiful thing, and that's another thing that is also a catalyst for these things as well. The difficult things as twin flames come in and out of each other's lives, and the chaser-runner dynamic continues to happen, the separation stages come, and it's funny, as you come together, you see each other, you spend time together and interact at whatever level you do, it's always a little deeper and a little higher up in vibration than it was the previous times before. And then the separation comes, and that hurts, let me tell you. When the other person goes away, it's a suffering that is unlike any other. But it's interesting, every time the suffering comes along, it's an identifier to use this as a mirror back to yourself and say, wow, I've got more shit to clear. I'm not in 5D as far as I need to be, so we're not supposed to be in union. And then individually, while in separation, both parties typically will become lighter and raise their vibration and grow. And this is also an indication that, yeah, you're twin flames and you're doing what you're supposed to do. Both people will do these things independent of each other in their own way. Here's another interesting characteristic that just popped in my head. It's very, very rare that twin flames are at or near the same age. Most twin flames are 10 to 40 years apart from each other in their physical age. And there's a lot of reasons why. It takes more life experience from one of them to complement the youth in the other one, to make more of a complete, well-rounded relationship as the two do come together at the different stages along the way. So there's this one couple, Mitten and Deva. I'm going to put a link to their channel down here as well. They are a twin flame couple. They're 23 years apart in age. I think they've been together since 1989, and they met in India at a spiritual community over there that's world renowned now. It's growing and growing in size, and they've got quite a story. I'll put their Facebook link on there as well. They've got their bios on their Facebook, and you've got to check out their music. It's absolutely beautiful. They've been making music together for years. The gentleman now is, I think he's 71 years old, and I just heard recently that he went through open heart surgery and nearly died. And it's interesting, as it's got around the spiritual community, why he's still alive is his soul chose not to leave yet. He's still got things to do here. So there's another lesson to be explored and discovered with how we choose to come into the life, how we choose our parents, how we choose the bodies that we're in with our twin, which is really interesting when you kind of dive into that, and we leave when we choose to leave. In spite of it being an accident or whatnot, it's amazing. You see people have all kinds of crazy accidents in life and they live, and then someone will just die in their bed. So it's not to do with like physical things that happen, it's to do with the soul choice and when it's time to leave. So it's really beautiful. So check these guys out. Their music is just amazing. And the point with their music, why I shared that, is there's a love that they share with each other that I have not seen before with any other couple that I've seen alive in the world today. It's absolutely fucking fascinating. When I listen to their music, there's a love in their music that just radiates, and you can sit back and just receive it, and it is literally unconditional and beautiful to encounter. There's a guy right there. Oh, it's scuba. Something I came across this spring is a book that somebody gave me. It's called the Magdalen Manuscript, and it is a channeling received, I think, about 15 years ago from this gentleman that wrote the book, him and his wife, from Mary Magdalene, and yes, the Jesus Mary. And we're taught in the Christian community, which I was part of most of my life, that Mary was a prostitute and getting stoned and all this, and Jesus saved her, and there's all these different things going on with the way the story's presented. And from the public perception back then, Mary was looked at as a prostitute, as a harlot, and it's since been cleared up that that's not what she was. She was actually just advanced in the art of sacred sexuality, and she was preparing herself to come to union with Jesus when she met him. And Jesus and Mary were actually a twin flame couple, and their story is quite fascinating. I'm going to put a link to that book down here in the description also. I would recommend to anybody who is interested in what I'm sharing today, get that book. It's on Amazon, and that story absolutely changed my life. When I read that story, it was so full of so much unconditional love that they both shared for each other, and all that went on behind the scenes that's not in the Bible. It just blew me away, and it was literally the most beautiful love story I've ever heard. There's so much divine, unconditional love they have for each other. I probably cried 10 times while reading that story. My twin has this book now, and hopefully she's diving into it as well. We'll see, maybe next time I see her. Some of the other characteristics that have now come and been revealed to me since I read that book, which took me to another heightened state, I guess, or a higher frequency, so I could see things a little bit differently, is more interaction with my twin and I. So some of the characteristics between us are, I'm the one that's more articulate. Obviously, I've got a YouTube channel, and I can stand up in front of a room and teach. I can play music in my band and do all these things. So I'm the one that can talk. And I learned in that book that Jesus and Mary had these same kind of characteristics as well. Jesus is the masculine energy, and masculine energy, electrically speaking, is like electricity going down through wires, and it travels, and it's proactive, and it's got journeys to take. Female, divine feminine, as it's called in the twin flame context, divine feminine energy is magnetic. It's still electric, but it's magnetic, and it withdraws and it attracts things to it. And so that's how she and I interact. She does her growing from withdrawing and becoming private, shielding herself, and I grow and ascend through my things by being proactive and reaching out to people and teaching. And as I audibly share things, that's how I actually process. So I have to actually be talking for me to grow and learn. So that's another interesting characteristic. One thing that we have in the same dynamic is we'll text each other. We'll have sometimes these marathon texting conversations deep into the night or whatever. Is I'll have an epiphany, or some big thing will come to me to do with my growth or our relationship, and I'll share with her something in a long 2 or 3 paragraph thing, and she'll reply back with, "That's exactly what I've been trying to say, but I can never get the words out. You're always the one with the words, Jim." And this is a trait and a characteristic of twin flames, is they think the same things. They don't always share these things the same, but we're always on the same wavelength, and different dynamics of how we're both growing and ascending. And one thing that she'll do typically is she'll withdraw and say, "No, we're not twin flames, blah, blah, blah." And then 2 weeks to 2 months later, she'll come back and it'll be the opposite, and we'll reconnect and take the relationship to another level. And I'm the one, as I come through the catalyst of separation, is I'll heal from that, and then I'll come into another form of glory and be in another high vibrative state, which is also a characteristic of a twin flame relationship. Is if you're continuing to raise your vibration and grow and ascend spiritually, then that is a characteristic that is only unique to twin flames. Soulmates don't have that, and let me tell you, if you are trying to make a soulmate relationship or someone you're dating that you're just interested in that's not even that, and trying to make it a twin flame thing, don't. Trust me. I've had to discover new resolve that I did not know I had 3 or 4 times this year as we go through these separations and reconnections. Every time the separation chasm between the higher the frequency goes, the harder the fall each time. So it's harder and harder each time, but every time I come through it, I'm always at a higher vibrational state. So that's another great characteristic. This is the first tarot card reading I've done on myself, so I thought I would just do it publicly and expose myself and see how this goes. So I've already kind of interpreted some of this. So the Ten of Pentacles is representing me delving deep into the past life, inner healing, DNA damage, early childhood trauma, things like that. So that's things I'm working on currently. This is to do with my twin flame and I are currently in separation. We have not spoken in a couple of weeks, but this is one of the rounds that we do all the time. So we go in and out of each other's lives as far as how we communicate and see each other or don't see each other. This is letting me know that moving forward, I'm on the right path. Stonehenge is in the background, and I actually just learned this morning that if you take a cross section of our DNA, it's actually the flower of life symbol, which is funny. That's actually what I'm wearing on my hoodie today. Interesting. And if you look at Stonehenge from the top down, heck, with all the stones completed without the missing ones, it's actually the flower of life in its shape. Then the Six of Pentacles is actually, this is showing conflict. There's things to be worked on. There's charity and gifts and love and all that abound, but there's also envy and jealousy and some things like that floating around. So with the twin flame, shared soul, and all of that, there is definitely work to be done in both of us. I'm thinking I like this first reading on myself. Another dynamic or characteristic of a twin flame relationship is expectations. Expectations, as we've learned from different teachings, and I've taught a little bit already, lead to suffering. All expectations lead to suffering. Unless the expectations are met, most expectations in life aren't. So expecting a relationship in the traditional sense with a twin flame is actually something that will keep union from happening, because expecting that is a 3D thing. So letting go of that expectation is the thing. So about 3 months ago, my twin and I had a component of separation that came along, and that caused some suffering in me that was deeper than I'd ever experienced before. So I was able to, in a meditative situation with a friend kind of guiding me, able to separate what was really important to me. It was the potential relationship with her in the future, and all of the things I explained with coming together in union and sharing divine love with the world. Or is it more about my spiritual ascension? So I was actually able to cross that threshold and separate the two and put my my attention fully on my spiritual ascension. Since I've done that, other relationships have come along in my life, not dating so much, just other women and other friends and other kinds of spiritual and relationships have developed with other people that have continued to elevate past the glimpses of heaven I had with her up to that point. So it's interesting. Now we're truly on separate paths now, doing our things, but we still interact. It's been a couple weeks, like I said, but I'm sure she'll come back around here soon. And it's interesting. She always leads the dynamic of when we're going to interact is always her choice, and I always respond with full vigor, like I do, put my full enthusiasm into it. And when the separation happens, it's always her leading the way as well. So it's interesting that dynamic is weaving in and out of this also. And I'm just hanging on for the ride, learning and growing as I can, and teaching the things that I learned to everybody around me. A couple more things to share is some more characteristics. I've learned something as my twin and I do this push-pull thing. We have these separations and coming togethers keep happening is I've shared this with a lot of people, and so that's why I did want to do this video, because I wanted to get a foundational thing to a lot of the interaction I have with the community around me. Is we exhibit behaviors that are manifestations of things going on inside of us. So as we're clearing and growing, fighting, rebelling, which is a part of growing, we resist a lot of times as part of it. She resists things to do with me sometimes, but then she comes back around and it's all full glory again, and it's always another dimension. I do the same thing too. As things are revealed in me, I constantly find myself disappointed in myself, which is a problem too. I shouldn't be doing that either. But as things become revealed to me, I'm like, God, I still have that shit in me. I got to clear out. Why am I still doing that? I didn't know I was doing that. Oh, that's a bad thing. So I'll continue to work on these things. What I've learned through these processes is to separate the person from the behavior. And so everybody does things in their lives that's really like not good behavior. So this is really something I would like to encourage everybody to embrace as they encounter different friends in their lives and people that you love, is don't attach the behavior to the person. If you love the person, maybe they're going through something that has nothing to do with you, who knows what's going on, but we all exhibit behavior that's not healthy. So if you can separate the person from the behavior, that's where you really find that you love somebody in many different ways, all kinds of different relationships where we love people. And you can love them through the behavior. Maybe you need to set a boundary, not be around them while they're exhibiting behavior that's not, good for you. And I do that from time to time with my twin and others as well. But yeah, so that's an interesting thing. I also find with my twin, when she maybe exhibits behavior that offends other people, I am able to navigate through that and help them understand what she's doing and why she's doing it, because a lot of people will see all the behavior, she's being shitty or whatever, and I'm like, no, hang on, this is what's going on. So one of the characteristics to identify that you are a twin flame with somebody is that you have that ability to see through the behavior. That if it was a traditional relationship, you'd be like, yeah, get the fuck out of here, I don't want to be around this. This is obsession, it's ridiculous. And if it wasn't a twin flame thing, I wouldn't be even interacting with my twin, because it would make no sense otherwise. There's too many push-pulls that would be, from any relational therapist would tell you, get away from that person, or this, not that they're bad, but the dynamic between you is bad and you should get into something more healthy. Because of the deep and high vibrational things that a twin flame thing is about, it makes everything make sense because of the growth that comes from it. If those growth components weren't happening, then it would be absolutely maddening. So the maddening leads to the growth, and if that's a characteristic that you can embrace with the person maybe you're considering as your twin, or just wanting to know about my story, that's what it is. So it's a beautiful thing. And Twin Flame 101, that's basically it. I was going to talk about some other stuff that's related as well, but I don't think I will, because I've gone kind of long and the seagulls are swarming. I don't know if they want me or what. Namaste, and I'ma go.